Okay, first of all, I'm going to show you, I've done a few pieces already to show you what you can achieve, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So first things first, this is glass. I have done this on glass, and you can see how well it crackles. This is a coat of Elmer's glue, and then I put my chalk paint on top of it, let it dry. You can also dry with a heat gun, and this is the crackles that I got. Now, this probably, because I just did this quick just to show you, this probably is not going to stay on here very well. If you want to do a crackle on glass, it's best to do a primer coat on your glass first and then do this technique. So I could have spray painted this with some black, put on my school glue, and then put a white paint on top, and all those crackles, the black paint would have showed up underneath. The clear glass is not that durable, but it's still kind of fun, and you can try that. The next thing that I'll show you is wood. Here's a piece of, this is just a piece of scrap pine. Eventually I'm going to turn this into a sign, yeah, it's that simple. I put on the black paint, black chalk paint, put on the Elmer's glue, and then while the Elmer's glue is still wet, you're going to put on your top coat. You don't want that glue to dry. I'll show you as we go along. And then I put on chalk paint on top of that, dried it, and all your crackles show up. So that's another example. Here's another piece of wood that I did. You see those great crackles in that? And if you've seen me do the Mod Podge reverse technique for graphics, you can put graphics on top of this and make signs too, so you can have a neat project by doing that. Now this is a more, I had some pieces of trim, and I just wanted to show you how well it crackled. Isn't that cool? See all the crackling now? And this is just a real thin crackle, and I kind of find that it looks really authentic. It's pretty decent. So you don't need to spend a whole bunch of money on any crackling solutions. You can just do it with Elmer's glue. And I was going to show you, you can even do it on paper. This is just a piece of paper out of an old magazine that I had. I put some Elmer's glue down while it was still wet. I painted on some chalk paint on top of it, and look at, I got the crackle on a piece of paper. And this was one that I did a really light coat, and then I put some this is just acrylic paint on top of it, and it's hard to see, I know, on camera, but it even crackled really fine lines through that one. So yeah, that's a few things that you can do with this technique. I've got a little block of wood here to show you how to do this. We're going to use the Elmer's glue, and I'm going to show you how simple this is. We're going to put the Elmer's glue on the piece of wood, and how thick you put it on will determine how thick crackling you get. So I've put quite a thick amount on this. It's probably actually too much. I'm going to take a little bit off. But you want a pretty good coat, and you want it even. Same across the whole piece of wood. Okay. And then you don't want this to dry. While it is still wet, I've got some white chalk paint over here off camera. Now the trick with this is you don't want to incorporate the paint into the glue. You want to do long strokes. If you're doing short strokes, you're going to be mixing that glue and the paint together. You're not going to get the crackles. You want to do long strokes and only go over it once or twice if you have to. I need a bit more glue. And take it from one end to the other, and that's it. And then what you're going to do, now I've got my heat gun. We're just going to, I'm going to show you how fast this is going to work. It'll be noisy for a second. Okay, see how those crackles are showing up already? We're just going to dry. Now you don't want to hold your heat gun too close to it, or it's going to heat up that glue and bubble up. So I'm actually, because I'm doing this fast on camera, this isn't the ideal way to do it. The ideal way would be to let it dry naturally in your craft room or out in the sun, but because we're speeding it up a little bit, the heat gun will work well. And you can see how the crackles are all showing up? So how cool is that? So you can imagine the possibilities with this technique for anything that you want to have that rustic look. If you have a piece of furniture that you want to have that crackled look on, vases, signs. I like using this with, I got a clump of glue there. I like using this on my signs. It just makes a really nice base. Now, that looks pretty good. And you can see the crackle that we've got here. How cool is that? If I was to turn this into a sign, I could put my Mod Podge graphics right on top of this. Now, the only thing you have to consider is you can't use very much water when you're rubbing off your graphic, or it's going to activate that glue underneath. So if you want to do a crackle technique underneath a sign, you have to be really careful. Use a minimal amount of water and just go in small areas while you're rubbing off your graphic. And it can work. It has worked fantastic for me, and it'll just give you more of an authentic sign. So that's really easy to do. I'm going to show you on the glass here, just as an example. So we're going to put some glue on our glass, spread it out nice and even. And again, if you're doing this on glass, it's best to have it primed first, because what will happen is this will just peel right off the original glass. But I'm just showing you this so you can see the technique. So we've got our glue on. We don't want it to dry. We're going to take our chalk. This is white chalk paint, and we're just going to brush it on. We don't want to work it in too much. We're going to do a long stroke and another long stroke. We're going to dry it with the heat gun, and you will see right away the crackles are going to start to appear. You can pick up this Elmer's glue on Amazon. I've seen it in the dollar store, any craft store. It's really readily available. If you're in another country and you don't have the Elmer's glue, this is just PVA glue, so you could use any type of PVA glue. And like I said at the beginning of the video, you can also use wood glue. I've had success with wood glue too. So you can see how fast these crackles are coming up. Isn't this fun? And I love doing different colors underneath to show through the crackle. And if you were doing this on a piece of furniture or a project, after this was completely dry, there we go. Isn't that so neat? After this was completely dry, I would seal it up with a polyacrylic sealer. That will ensure that it's nice and sealed in there. It's not going to chip. It's not going to peel off. And if you put this matte polyacrylic sealer on top of this, it's just going to allow it to be able to be dusted or wiped down with a damp cloth. If you don't put a sealer on top of it, then it's going to pick up dirt, and it's going to, because you've got exposed paint, and it's not going to be easy to clean. Okay, I had this little vase. I was going to show you how we could get some crackle on this one. We're going to do the Elmer's glue. Walmart, yes. Walmart, you can get a gallon of this stuff at Walmart for, I guess, $11. I'm in Canada, so our prices are a little bit different, but it's really affordable. It's not expensive at all. And if any of you have ever bought Crackle from paint companies, holy doodle, it is expensive, and I don't find that I get much of a different result than I do with the school glue. So as far as I'm concerned, this works just as well. I think I've got the glue all over it. I'm going to, let's do, what have I got here? Well, this is a pretty color. Let's do some acrylic. Now you can use acrylic. You can use acrylic paint. You can use chalk paint. You can use latex paint. It's all going to work for you. It's all going to crackle for you. before this dries, we're going to do long strokes and apply this paint. And don't work it into the glue too much. We're going to cross our fingers that this is going to work well. Now this around the flowers probably isn't going to crackle all that great because there's so many little nooks and crannies. We're going to get the heat gun. And we're going to start to dry. Let's see if we can get some crackles. Yeah, so you can see how this created a really fun crack. You can see what I was saying about doing it for Halloween. If you had it black underneath and then the orange, or fall decor. But yeah, that crackled pretty good. For a sloppy paint job, we did pretty good on that. Okay, let's do a piece of paper. I'll show you. So if you're into junk journaling or scrapbooking or mixed media, this is a really great way to create some fun papers that you can do some different techniques on. This is just a page out of an old book that was missing a bunch of sheets and pages that I've been adding into my junk journal. I need a bit more. Actually, why don't we experiment while we're here? I'm going to dry this and then we're going to do the technique on top and see what it does. So let's dry the glue. We'll dry this, then we'll put the paint on top, and then we'll dry it and we'll see what happens. Because it won't take very long for this glue to dry. And this is what we are hoping to have, this crackle. So this is just that same type of paper. I put the glue on, but now this one I did with the glue still wet and then put the paint on top. This one we're gonna dry the glue and see what it does. Let's just try it. See what we get. Okay, now we'll dry. Yeah, it's starting to crackle, so you can let this dry. Also, it doesn't have to be wet. Now, like I said before, what I've noticed is it's a finer crackle. If you're letting that glue dry and then putting the paint on top, it's finer and it's not as, we'll put these side by side so you can see. We'll get this one dry. Almost dry here. So I don't find it, you just have to kind of maybe experiment with it. So this is the one where the glue is still wet. And this is one where the glue was dry. Now you can see it's finer crackles. It's not as pronounced as this one. So it depends on what you want for your projects. If you want a really pronounced crackle, then I would do it while it's still wet. If you want a thin crackle, then I would let it dry and then put your paint on top of it. So yeah, it's just something that you can fool around with and give it a go. Yeah, like the more glue that you put on, the thicker of a crackle you're going to get. The thinner that you put it on, the thinner a crackle you're going to get. So it's all just something that you just can play around with. So like these pieces, I did a very thin crackle on it, or a very thin layer of glue, sorry, and we got nice thin crackles. This one, I put a very thick coat of glue and we got the thick crackles. This one too, also very thick, and we got great big thick crackles, opposed to a thin coat of glue and you get the thinner crackles. So it all just depends on, on your project and what you're trying to achieve. This is on that little vase, and then we have our crackle on our glass. So there you go. All kinds of options. So now you have something that you can work on this afternoon and experiment with. Get out your Elmer's glue, give this crackle technique a try. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you really soon in the next video. Take care, everyone.